We're holding in the middle of the parak. Last week we spoke a little bit about Zohar and Shamar, the two aspects of Shabbos. That you're supposed to remember Shabbos and do certain things, and Shamar, to guard Shabbos, meaning to guard yourself from doing certain things that you're not supposed to do. So now the Medrash is going to define what does it mean Shamar. It brings the pasuk in Parshas Kisisa. You should guard the Shabbos because it's holy for you. So it says the Medrash, Mahu Shimur Shel Shabbos. What's the guarding of the Shabbos? What do you mean to guard the Shabbos? The answer is Milahaver Ba'esh. It means to guard the Shabbos from burning upon the Shabbos an Eish or a fire. You're not allowed to burn a fire on Shabbos. And from doing forms of creative work on Shabbos. And to go in, to come in and out from the tchum, even 1 foot, you're not allowed to go past 2,000 amas from where you were at the beginning of Shabbos. You're not allowed to leave that. That's another thing that you're not supposed to do on Shabbos. And you're not supposed to take an object in your hand and bring it 4 amas in a Rishus Harabim. The Radal says that it's a dechek to say that we're talking about muktzah. It's not, we're talking about haitzah. We're talking about carrying, Rishus Harabim, or ulu haitzim, Rishus Rishus, or to take an object from one Rishus and put it into a different Rishus. These are the different things that you're not allowed to do. This is what it means to guard the Shabbos. These are the different things that you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to burn a fire, you're not allowed to do malacha, you're not allowed to go out of the tchum, you're not allowed to go out Rishus Rishus or Dal Ramas in Rishus Harabim carrying something. These are the different isurim that have to do with Shabbos. It's time in the order of the things that it mentions. So the Radal proposes switching lahaver ba'esh and lases ba'malacha, because lahaver ba'esh is an example of a malacha. I mean, it says don't burn a fire, and also don't do other forms of malacha. So first I should say don't do forms of malacha, and then one of those forms of malacha is lahaver ba'esh.
Could you say like this, which is a sound thought, that the haver ba'esh means to, if there isn't one, you use the target. But if there is one, and you put it from over here to here, it's also usher, but that's not malacha.
I think it's the same thing. They're both the same thing.
Technically a malacha.
They're both, I think, the same thing. But there's a reason why, there's a specific reason why the Medrash over here singles out the Isser of burning a fire on Shabbos. Because let's see if you think about it, right? There's 39 malachos that you're not allowed to do, right? 39 forbidden forms of work that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. And one of those 39 is to make a fire.
That's what I'm saying, make a fire. But if there's already a fire, maybe I could put it from over here to over here, and that's
called making a fire also. But so making a fire is the same thing as bayrer. It doesn't mention bayrer here in the Medrash. So why does it single out making a fire?
Wait, did you stop it?
No.
I saw your hand go up here.
No, I was just checking to make sure that it's recording.
Good.
So what's the pshat? So if you look in the psukim never says what the 39 malachos are. It just says lo sasa kol malacha or kol ha'isa b'malacha ma'isimas. These different things, but it doesn't say what is malacha. The definition of malacha comes from Halach Meshim Sinai, from Chazal, exactly what the 39 malachos are. The one exception to this is that the Torah does specifically say that you're not allowed to make a fire on Shabbos. In Parshas Vayakel, it says lo yisavaru eish b'chol ma'isha yiseichem b'yom ha'Shabbos. You're not allowed to make a fire. So the Torah itself already singles out the Isser of making a fire. So the Torah singled it out, so the Medrash is also going to single it out, even though technically it's included in when we said melachos b'malacha. That's one point. But the other point is like this. Why did the Torah single out the Isser of Havara on Shabbos? Why did the Torah single out the Isser of making a fire and not just include it in malacha? Why did the Torah do that? So in the Gemara, in a few places in Shas, the Gemara brings a machlekes why the Torah did that. One is Havara l'lav yatzis or Havara l'chalek yatzis. Right? The Torah took out Havara from the klal. This is one of the rules of hermeneutical rules of darshaning the Torah is davar sheyatsa min a klal. So there's a klal, meaning a general parsha of malacha on Shabbos, and then there's then the Torah also specifically says havara. Why did the Torah specifically speak it out? So Gemara has a machlekes. Is it because l'chalik or l'lav yatzis? Meaning, l'chalik would mean to tell you that to make a difference, to split things. The Gemara says that you would have thought that a person is only going to be chayiv misa or chayiv karyas on Shabbos if he does all 39 malachas, because it says don't do malacha. So if you do malacha, that means you do all 39 malachas, then you're chayiv. But if you do one of the 39, then lav dafka you're chayiv. So the Torah spoke out specifically havara to tell you that even singular malachas on their own you're already chayiv for. That's the opinion that says lachalik yatzis. The other opinion says no, havara l'lav yatzis. No, it's not coming to tell you anything about the malachas in general. It's coming to tell you something specific about havara. That all the other 39 of the 39 malachas on Shabbos, if you do that, you chayiv kares. If you do it on purpose, if you do b'shegeg, you have to bring a korban chatas. If you have edom and asor, you chayiv mesa. All these things, right? But havara is special. Havara, the Torah spoke it out specifically to tell you that it's just a lav. It's just an Isra lav. You do havara, if you do, there were witnesses and they give you a warning, whatever, all you get is malchus. You don't get killed. Havara is l'lav yatzis. That's that opinion. We don't hold like that opinion. We hold l'chalik yatzis. But there is such an opinion that l'lav yatzis. So the Radal speaks out over here that Rabbi Eliezer himself, in Gemara in Masechah Sanhedrin, Rabbi Eliezer himself holds l'chalik yatzis. That the reason why the Torah spoke out havara again, even though it's included in the malachas, is to tell you that you're chayiv on each malacha on its own. So over here, the fact that the Medrash spoke out havara separately from malacha is simply because the Torah spoke it out separately. Not to tell you that havara is different than the malachas. It's included all the malachas. Right. That's this point of the Radal. The question is, if you understand like this opinion that havara is the lav yatzis, that making a fire, burning something on Shabbos is only an isser lav, it's not an isser kares like the other malachas. So the question is why? Why is havara different than all the other malachas? So the answer is a pashut answer. I heard this from Revelio Diskin. He spoke once in the shul when I lived in Ramana Shkol, so he spoke there on the Shabbos. So he said an answer, which it's a pashut answer. I bring this down in my sefer on Yivamis, on Vavim Days. He says that havara is different than all other forms of malacha on Shabbos, because other forms of malacha on Shabbos, we always translate malacha as creative work. We are trying to create something and make something better and make it newer. Havara is the exact opposite. Havara is the fire is destroying something. So it could be that you're using the fire for a specific purpose, to heat the house, to cook food or whatever. But the reason why havara is chayiv is because of the fact that you're destroying something, and that makes it different than all the other malachas. Because other malachas, the reason why you're chayiv is because you're creating something, you're making it better. Here you're destroying it. Really, destroying and creating is really that's in the same thing. You're changing the metzius of that thing, whether it's for good or for bad. But the opinion that said that havara is only a lav would understand that destroying is a lower level of creating. So therefore, you're not so chayav. I wrote in parentheses that this is not like the Shulchan Aruch Harav, who has a different understanding in what the isser of havara is, but I don't remember what he says, and I didn't have a chance to look it up. So that's why havara would be only a lav. There's another exception to this idea that the malacha on Shabbos is creating or making a change for the better, and that is the malacha of hitzah. We said the Medrash also spoke about hitzah, that you're not allowed to carry something from place to place, or from rishus to rishus, or dalarams to rishus rabim. So Tosfos in the beginning of Masechah Shabbos famously says that hitzah is malacha gerua. It's a let's call it a lesser malacha. It's not the same type of malacha as the other malachas. And there it's the same idea, because when we talk about Heitzah, you're not actually changing the object for better or for worse. You're just changing where the object is. So therefore, it's not called a creative malacha like the other malachos are. Okay, that's what Tesis over there says. And that's one way of understanding why Havara would be a lav as opposed to other types of malachas. I found another reason why Havara would be different than other types of malachas. From Rabbi Yonos and Eibeshitz in Tiferes Yohaneson, Shmais Lamed Hey, Perek Lamed Hey, Pasuk Gimel, in the Pasuk of V'lei Sevaru Eish, in Parshas Vayakel, Rabbi Yonos and Eibeshitz says another word. And this brings us to some interesting Yesodis about the Inyanim of Shabbos. There's two aspects of Shabbos. When we talk about Shabbos, there's two aspects of where does Shabbos come from, let's say. There's one inyan of Zecher L'maaseh Bereishis. The Shabbos is a way of remembering or commemorating Hashem creating the world in 6 days and then stopping on Shabbos. That's one inyan of Shabbos. The other inyan of Shabbos is Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. Shabbos is a Zecher to Yetzias Mitzrayim, to the fact that we came out of Mitzrayim. There's two inyanim of Shabbos. So it says Rabbi Yonos and Eibeshitz that the first fire was created on Motzei Shabbos of creation. In the Sheshes Yemei Bereishis, there was no fire. And then on Friday, Adam Rishon was created. He was Chaytei. Shabbos he was in Gan Eden. He got kicked out afterwards, whatever. And then Motzei Shabbos, that's when he got the first fire. So fire really is not part of Sheshes Yemei Bereishis. So he says that when we talk about fire, the malacha of fire is not included in Zecher L'maaseh Bereishis. And we talk about Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim, fire is included in Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim, because fire, burning things, was one of the malachas that they had to do in order to create things for the Mishkan. So he says, therefore, all other malachas have both the maila of Zecher L'maaseh Bereishis and Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. And therefore, they have the chomer of all the Yisurim that we have on Shabbos, of kares and miso and whatever. Masha Ein Kain, the inyan of Havara on Shabbos only has an aspect of Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. It doesn't have the aspect of Zecher L'maaseh Bereishis. Therefore, it could be you can hear why it would be a lesser lav. It's only a lav. It's not an iser kares. That's what Enosh and Eibeshitz says, because it doesn't have both nukudas. We're going to speak more about the inyan of fire coming in Motzei Shabbos in Parak Chaf when we speak about Motzei Shabbos.
You also say Tza'ah also doesn't have, it's like it's not nogea to Sheshes Yemei.
Why is it not Negea?
Adam was created Yom Shishi, but there was no Rishus.
There were different places. There were different places in the world to go.
There was Gan Eden.
Gan Eden was.
Yeah, when he was thrown out, then there were
so you want to know if Gan Eden was Rishus Harabim or Rishus Hayochid? I don't know. Because there weren't any. There definitely weren't 600,000 people there, right? As far as we know. But this idea of that Rabbi Yonos and Eibeshitz brings us to that Shabbos, there's two aspects: the Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim and Zecher L'maaseh Bereishis is something that we find about Shabbos in a lot of different ways. That Shabbos is always double. There's sort of not necessarily a dichotomy, but there's two themes of Shabbos. There's always like two things going on at the same time. Shabbos is like two things at once. When I was walking from shul to the bakery, I thought of 6 places or 6 examples where we see the inyan of double on Shabbos. In Shabbos you have this neshama yisera. You have, first of all, besides the 6 things, this time you have a neshama yisera. You have an additional neshama. You have your regular neshama, and you also have your Shabbos neshama. There's something extra on Shabbos. So the first thing, of course, is zachor v'shamar. There's 2 aspects of Shabbos. There's the mitzvahs estes of Shabbos and mitzvahs lois estes of Shabbos. And then there's what we just said, the Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim and Zecher L'maaseh Bereishis. Another nekuda we're going to see in the end of the parak is that the word Shabbos is sometimes lashon zachar and sometimes lashon nekeva. The same word has 2 meanings. It has a double function in grammar, and that I think also has to do with zachar and shomer. Like zachar is lashon of like zachar. Because what do we say? That remembering Shabbos means remember to go do something, go and actively do something. And that's the role of the Zachar, to go and actively be mashpia. And Shamar is to withhold yourself from doing something. to not do something. That's the role of the nekeva, to passively create things. That's zachar and shamar, and zachar and nekeva. Shabbos we light 2 candles. Well, zachar and shamar, 2 candles. You have 2 chalas, zachar and shamar, double. And also in the korban of Shabbos, in the korbanos, so the korban tamid, every day you bring 1 kevis in the morning, 1 kevis in the evening, or in the afternoon, really. Shabbos you bring, for the korban musaf of Shabbos, you bring 2 kvasim. It's double the regular korban, double. Usually the korban musaf in other cases usually is 7 kvasim. When we talk about like Rosh Chodesh and Yom Tovim, it's 7 kvasim. There's exceptions. There's Sukkot is 14 kvasim. But there are it's either 1 or 7. But Shabbos is dafka 2. And this Indian of Shabbos being double, lots of them speaks about this at great length. Rav Shimshon Pincus has a whole sefer about Shabbos called Shabbos Malchus. And in the Chelik Daled Perek Hey and Vav, he speaks about all these different ideas of the double aspects of Shabbos. And this really has to do with sort of what we spoke about last week, that Shabbos doesn't have a zivug. Why? So we said Pashup Shabbos, the other days of the week you have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Shabbos is separate. That's one way. The other way we said from the Gra understood that, let's say, Sunday Hashem created the light, and then Wednesday Hashem created the sun and the moon. The Sunday was the idea of light, the potential of light, and Wednesday was the fulfillment of that potential. The sun and the moon was the fulfillment of the potential of light. And then Monday Hashem created, the difference between the heavens and the earth, the difference between the Mayim Al Yom and the Mayim Tachtonim. That the Mayim Al Yom and the Mayim Tachtonim had the potential to bring life to the world. And then Thursday was when Hashem created the fish and the birds, which was what came out of the Mayim Al Yom and the Mayim Tachtonim. So, but what it means that, the way Rav Shimshon Pincus explains it, what it means that every day of the week has a zivug, except for Shabbos, is that every day of the week has one day which represents the potential of that idea, and one day which brought out the potential into the lamaisa. But when we talk about Shabbos, there is no potential and lamaisa of Shabbos. There's only one Shabbos. And also, obviously, that's the Indian zivug when we talk about a man and a woman. It's the same thing. There's a potential, and then there's a bringing out from the potential. But Shabbos doesn't have that. So he says that the Indian of Shabbos, more or less, what he says to oversimplify what he says, because it's really more complicated than that. But more or less what he says is that Shabbos itself is both. And that's why we have this double Indian of Shabbos. Zachar and Shamar. Shabbos is lashon Zachar. Shabbos is lashon nekeva. All these things, Shabbos is double because the day itself is double. It's both the potential and the bringing out of the potential.
What potential? Sorry, I missed it.
What potential? We didn't say what the potential is. The Indian of the kedushas of Shabbos, to bring out whatever the kedusha. Hopefully we'll see more later on about what exactly it means that Shabbos is kodesh and etc. Okay. Let's go weiter.
Could be that you're saying that you represent something else, not from this world, like we say.
Well, like we said last week, yeah.
Yeah, 1/5 of
Olam Haba. Yeah.
So it's a potential of something else. It's not tangible to this, in this world.
Right. Okay.
Which page?
We're in Perek Yud Ches. In your edition, it's on page Kuf Nun Vav. Okay. Beini uvein bnei Yisrael eis hili yolam. Now we're sort of darshing the psukim about Shabbos. So the pasuk says that about Shabbos is Beini uvein bnei Yisrael eis hili yolam. Between me and between bnei Yisrael, it's a sign forever. It's an everlasting sign. The Medrash is going to have an interesting way of darshing the words Beini uvein bnei Yisrael, the way I understand it. But that Shabbos is a sign between a Kodesh Baruch Hu and bnei Yisrael. Omar Kodesh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, HaShabbos hazeh nosati l'Yisrael beini leveinom. This Shabbos I gave to Bnei Yisrael between me and between them. B'sheshes yimei ha'maisa po'alti es ha'olam u'v'Shabbos nachti. During the 6 days of creation, I worked made action in the world to create the world, and on Shabbos I rested. Therefore, I gave to the people in the world 6 days of work. Hashvi'i, and the 7th day, bracha ukdusha umenucha li v'lahem. The 7th day, the 7th day is a day of blessing and holiness and rest, both for me and for them, for Klal Yisrael and for Hashem. L'kach nemar, therefore it says in the pasuk, Beini uvein bnei Yisrael. I think this is what it means to say. That in Lashon Chazal, when you say like bein with this, bein with that, so it means like whether this or whether that. Right? It doesn't mean between this or between that, like it does in Lashon Mikra. In Psukim, bein means between. In the Chazal, bein means like whether this or whether that. Bein this, bein, I can't think of an example right now, but
there's one Devarim I just read.
Yeah.
The Rashi says over here, it means
whether.
Both.
It means both.
Yeah.
So
This is the 3 examples of both.
oh yeah, does he say this pasuk?
I don't know. I'm in Devarim and I can check
Yeah.
find it to see if that's where he shows.
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't know.
No. But the Medrash is darshaning it like that, like this. Like Shabbos is Beini uvein bnei Yisrael. Whether for me, for Hashem, or for Bnei Yisrael, it's Shabbos. The Pashup Shad in the pasuk is saying that it's a Shabbos as a sign between me and Bnei Yisrael, like it's a part of the bris, part of the covenant. And the way we're darshaning here is saying whether for me it was a bris, I worked for 6 days and then I rested. Whether for Bnei Yisrael they worked for 6 days and then they rested. And this also goes back to what Rabbi Epstein asked about last week. What does it mean that Hashem gave them Shabbos? How do you give somebody a day? You can give them your pen, but you can't give them a day, right? What does it mean you gave it to them? So we're saying that Hashem gave them this opportunity to rest, as opposed to having to work for the whole week of Yom B'Layla Leish Beisu. But here it's saying another nukuda, that He's giving them that opportunity to follow in their footsteps. Pinkus.
Between to the world is the 7th day.
Right.
To Klal Yisrael is Shabbos.
Right.
That's the difference. If it happens at the same time, it's not the same thing.
Right. Pinkus, also in this sefer in Shabbos Malkusa, in Perak Chelik Gimel Perak Aleph, he says another idea over here. We said last week that Shabbos is a matana. Hashem said Shabbos is a matana teva. It's a good present that He gave to Klal Yisrael. What does it mean that it's a good present? And why is Shabbos more matana teva than other Yomim Tovim? Every Yom Tov is something that Hashem gave to us. So it says that basically that Shabbos is different from other Yomim Tovim because Shabbos you sort of plug into the Kedusha of Shabbos itself, as opposed to other Yomim Tovim. The way it works is that you do certain mitzvahs that brings you to certain levels of Kedusha, and then that brings you to the Kedusha. The difference is like this. Shabbos, you don't play an active role in creating Shabbos. You experience Shabbos. Yom Tov, you make the Yom Tov. A pashut way of understanding it is that Shabbos is something that's permanently established in the Bria, that every 7th day is Shabbos, no matter what. When we talk about Yom Tov, so Yom Tov is dependent on Beis Din saying, this is the month, and then based on the new month, you calculate the days, and then you come to the Yom Tov. Man creates the Yom Tov in that way.
You know that Russian brachos explain why the brachos in Shabbos and Yom Tov.
Yeah.
Before Shabbos, and then Yisrael.
Right. Mekadesh Yisrael v'Azmanim.
Yeah.
Right. And right. In Shemoneh Esrei on Yom Tov, or even Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, you say Mekadesh Yisrael v'Azmanim, or Mekadesh Yisrael v'Yom Kippurim, or Yom. Shabbos is just Mekadesh Shabbos.
Yeah. Shabbos and Israel and
right.
And Azmanim. It says because it was created and Shabbos was created
this is the basic idea. He says that Pinkus points out it's a cute raya, that when you sing Zmiris on let's say Pesach, what do you sing? What Zmiris do you sing on Pesach? You sing Hamavir Bano Ben Gizah Yamsuf, or you sing Mimitzrayim Galtanu, Mibeis Avodah Pidisanum. What do you sing about? You sing about something that happened in the past that Pesach is sort of a zecher to that, right? When you sing Zmiris on Shabbos, What are you singing about on Shabbos?
Can I disagree with you?
Why?
Because in the Agada itself, it says that we should feel it, like it's happening now. So what he's singing is that we
Beseder, you're right. But as opposed to Shabbos, where what do you sing about? You sing about the Shabbos itself. Yom zeh mechubed mikol yomim. Hashomer Shabbos havenim im avas. You sing about Shabbos itself. Some people say, "Oy oy oy Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos." But Pika says you don't have people singing "Oy oy oy Pesach, oy 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 Pesach." When on Pesach you don't sing about the actual Yontif. You speak about what the Yontif represents. On Shabbos you speak about the Shabbos itself, because Shabbos is what Shabbos represents. It brings Pinkus brings the in Parshas Emor it says Moyadei Hashem asher tikru some mikrei kodesh elehem moyadoi. These are the moyadim. Mikrei kodesh means that you called it kodesh. The Klal Yisrael called it, meaning that's totally in Beis Din. Sheish yomim teyosim melacho vayom hashvi Shabbos in mikra kodesh. Kol melacha leisasu Shabbos hila Hashem b'chol meishvei seichem. 6 days you should do work, and the 7th day Shabbos in mikra kodesh. The question is, why is Shabbos called mikra kodesh? Mikra kodesh means you call it, you make it kodesh. That's like Yom Tovim. This is the parsha of Yom Tovim in Parshas Emor. Why is Shabbos included in the parsha of Yom Tovim? So they famously say, the Goyin says this, and maybe Rabbi Heschel also says this in Chanukah Sater. They said that when it says Sheish Yom Teyosim Melachol Vayom Hashvi Shabbos, it's not talking about Shabbos Kodesh, the 7th day of the week as we know it. It's really talking about Sheish Yom Teyosim Melachol. Right, 6 days you do Melacha, meaning 6 Yom Tovim. You're allowed, are Yontif, but you're allowed to do Malacha of Eichel Nefesh. Right? Whether it's 6 Yom Tovim, you have Rosh Hashanah one day, you have Sukkot first day, Sukkot last day, Pesach first day, Pesach last day, and Shavuos. So there's 6 Yom Tovim, and Yom HaShvi'i, the 7th one, meaning the special day of the 7th month, Yom Kippur, that you're not allowed to do Malacha, B'chal, even for Eichel Nefesh. So it's really talking about Yom Kippur. That's what the famous Vart over there.
Explain to people here, according to maybe.
Well,
Shana is 2 days, and then why it's 7? No,
Yom HaRichta done. It's 1 day, or in Millennia it's 1 day, or yeah. And so all the other Yom Tovim, the way it works is that you have to go, as we said, as Rapinka said, you do a mitzvah, and that brings out the kedusha. Let's say on Sukkot, so you sit in the sukkah and that brings a certain kedusha. You take a lulav, that brings a certain kedusha. Rosh Hashanah, you blow shofar, you eat matzah. All these different things, they brings you to a certain kedusha. He says even Shavuos, which Shavuos you say you don't have any special mitzvahs on Shavuos. No, the Gemara says in Mesachas Pesachim that Hakol Moedim Ba'atzeres Dibina Nami Lachem. On Shavuos, there's a special inyan, a special lacha on Shavuos that you're supposed to enjoy Shavuos, to have simcha, to eat basar v'yayin or whatever. Right, so these different things, that different Yom Tovim, you do something and that brings out the kedusha of the Yom Tov. Shabbos, there's nothing that you do that brings out the kedusha. Shabbos is itself the kaddish. Shabbos is Shabbos kodesh. Yom Kippur, in some ways, is like Yom Tov, and in some ways is like Shabbos. There's no specific mitzvah on Yom Kippur that you do to bring out the kedusha. Yom Kippur, the Gemara says that the day of Yom Kippur itself is machaper. There's an opinion in the Gemara, I think it's Rebbe in Mesachos Yuma, that Rebbe holds that if a person, he doesn't even do tshuva, he still has a kapara in Yom Kippur, even without tshuva, because the day itself is machaper, without you doing anything. Just like Shabbos, that's why it's called Shabbos Shabbosin. But in other ways, it's more like a Yom Tov, because it has to do with the lunar calendar, with Beis Din being Mikra Kodesh, deciding that this is the day, and then in 10 days later is going to be Yom Kippur. So Yom Kippur goes both. The Marsha also speaks about this in the Marsha in the beginning of Mesachas Yuma, speaks about how Yom Kippur is a type of Shabbos. Mamish Daf Beis Aleph, for the first Marsha Chedush Haggadah in Yuma, he speaks about how Yom Kippur is also in Indian of Shabbos. That's why Shivas Yomim Lefnei Yom Kippurim will mafresh the Kohen Gadol. But why 7 days? Because 7 has to do with Shabbos, and Yom Kippur is a remnant to Shabbos. So that's what's going on over here. The 6 days we do Malacha, the 7th day is the Kedusha of Shabbos. Now the next part of the Medrash over here is loosely based on, at least in the way I understand it, is loosely based on a Mishnah in Sefer Yetzirah. The Sefer Yetzirah, Perek Dalet, Mishnah Tes Vav. Basically, if you heard a little bit about Sefer Yetzirah, so the basic idea of Sefer Yetzirah is that it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with the letters of the Aleph Beis. And it goes through different ways that Hashem did that and built things and whatever. That it's not exactly negea to us exactly what Sefer Yetzirah is saying and what exactly all these things mean. But what it says in Sefer Yetzirah is that there's 7 letters in the Aleph Beis that are repeated. Yeah? What do you mean repeated? That there's 2 forms of that letter. There's that letter and then that letter with a dot inside of it. Yeah? There's Beis Gimel Dalid, Chaf Pei Reish Taf. Now some of these we don't know exactly how to pronounce. Like a Beis, we know a Beis and a Beis. And a Taf is a Taf and a Saf. And a Gimel, a Gimel and a Gimel, something like that. A Gimel, people say that it's a mistake. I don't know if it's a mistake or not. I don't know. I don't know. Kaf and a Chaf, right? Kaf and a Chaf, Pei and a Fei, a Reish and a Reish. I don't know how to pronounce a Reish with a dot in it. Reish does it. A few places has a dagish. And Dalet is like a Dalet and a I don't know how. Dalet and a Dalet, something like that. Something like that. Something like that. Right. Beged Kefet with and also Reish.
6 and 7? So it's at 7.
That's 7. So there's 7 letters, Beged Kefet and Reish. So the thing is that Reish was like lost much earlier, so people don't even talk about Reish. But because we like Mamish don't know how to do a Reish with a dagish in it. But as far as I know, could be there's some people that'll tell you that they do know.
According to the rules of grammar, it doesn't get one, and it changes the grammar of
the next letter of the previous letter. If the vav is gonna have a dot in it or whatever, yeah.
So.
But okay, whatever. That's the grammar. That's the grammar Shabbat. But the Sefer Yetzirah says that these 7 letters that have 2 forms represent 7 things that Hashem was choykik in the world. Hashem set in the world that 7 is a holy number. He says Shava Kfulais. This is Perek Dalet Mishnah Yudalet. Shava Kfulais Beged Kafrat. Shebehen Nichkakin Shiva Olamais. With those Hashem was choykik, he engraved the 7 worlds. Shiva Rekim, and the 7 heavens. Shiva Aratzis, the 7 lands. Shiva Yamim, the 7 seas. You ever heard of the 7 seas? You know, the pirates, the 7 seas. So this is where it comes from, the 7 seas. Shiva Naharis, the 7 rivers. Shiva Midbaris, 7 deserts. Shiva Yomim, 7 days. Shiva Shavuos, 7 days till Shabbos. Shiva Shavuos, 7 weeks, probably till Sfiras Amish Shavuos. Shava Shonim, 7 years till Shemitah. Shava Shmitais, 7 Shmitas till Yovel. Shiva Yovlos, 7 Yovels. What does that mean? I don't know. The Heichal HaKodesh, and the holy Heichal. I don't know what that means either. Lefichach, therefore, chibev es hashviyos tachas kol shamayim. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu endeared to him the 7s under the shamayim. So that's what it says in Sefer Yetzirah. Now the Medrash, till close to the end of the parak, is going to go through these different things and see and explain them a little bit more.
What happens after 350 years?
Do you want to be there to find out? Okay, so let's read what it says in the Medrash. Shiva Rekim. Shiva Rekim is 7 heavens. Shiva Rekim Baruch Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem created 7 heavens. Umikulam leipacha l'mechain shiftay el araves. And he only decided he chose for himself to live, let's say, only dafka araves. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, Sarah l'roicha ba'araves bekashmai. He was riding around in Araves with Hashem in his name. I don't know exactly what these things mean, but Hashem chose Araves. If you look at really Gemara in Mesachas Chagiga, the Gemara in Chagiga Yud Beis Amid Beis says what the 7th heavens are. They are Shemayim, Rakia, Shchakim, Zvul, Ma'oin, and Aravas. And Aravas is the seventh one. Hashem chose the seventh one. Shiva Aratzos Bara Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu created 7 lands. And of those 7 lands, Hashem Dafka chose Eretz Yisrael. Shinamar, as it says in the pasuk, Tamid Eini Hashem Lekecha Bach. The eyes of Hashem are always upon Eretz Yisrael.
What are the other 6 lands?
What are the other 6 lands? So the Radal in Ois Mem brings from Chazal and other places. It's also, the Radal in Ois Mem brings from Chazal and other places that there's 7 expressions of Rabbi Nassim. There's 7 in Vayikra Rabbah, that there's 7 expressions used to refer to land: Eretz, Adma, Arka, Gei, Tzia, Nishia, and Tevel. And apparently one of those refers to Eretz Yisrael, and would dafka mean that one. Very difficult to understand exactly what that means. Elsewhere in Chazal it says that Hashem chose Tevel. He created 7 arasas, and he chose Tevel. Like Hashem Tevel v'yeshveba. Not sure exactly what that means. The Radal brings another pshat that from Maram Berlin, and this is Oisnam Aleph in the Radal. The Radal says that there's 7 lands. This we can understand a little bit better. Hashem created. There are 7 lands that Bnei Yisrael passed through until they came to Eretz Yisrael. They went through Eretz Edom, Amoin, Moav, Midian, Sichon, Og, and then they came to Eretz Yisrael. Those are the 7 lands. So, and Eretz Yisrael was the 7th one. Fine. Let's go weiter. Shiva Harim Baruch HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem created 7 mountains. Umikulam loivachar ela b'Har Sinai. And of those 7 mountains, Hashem only chose Har Sinai. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, Hahar chamad alikim l'shiftoi. The mountain upon which Hashem desired for his dwelling. So Har Sinai is also the 7th. What are these 7 mountains? So the Radal brings that the Gra in his Pirush on Tikkunei Zohar says that the 7 mountains are there. If you look, there's 7 mountains that are mentioned in Tanakh, and there's 7 mountains that are in Eretz Yisrael. And the Radal says that's not true. If you look, and you'll see that there's much more than 7 mountains mentioned in all of Tanakh, and more than 7 mountains even in Tanakh that are mentioned that have to do with Eretz Yisrael. So you can't say that. So he says that it sounds like it's talking about 7 mountains that are dafka not in Eretz Yisrael. That's why it chose Har Sinai. Har Sinai is dafka not in Eretz Yisrael. So how can you say we're talking about dafka Eretz Yisrael? Difficult to understand. He does bring a medrash in the Hisofis. The Radal brings a medrash that says that there were 7 mountains that were competing for which one is Hashem going to give the Torah on. This is a famous medrash they teach you when you're a little kid in nursery school. I couldn't find the medrash, but there's apparently the whole story with the argument between different mountains. Each one is saying that why Hashem should dafka choose them, and Har Sinai didn't say anything, and that's why Hashem chose Har Sinai because it was the Anav. I couldn't find this medrash, but there's such a thing. You heard it when you were a little kid, no?
Oh, the Har Tavur wanted to come.
The Har Tavur was big and strong. I don't know where it is.
All the mountains they got the reparations afterwards.
Right.
They went to the conference point.
Right. They had the what's it called? Treaty of Vienna.
I thought it was
What?
just my reform school.
It's just your reform school. The truth is, I didn't really do a whole research and try to find it. It could be it's somewhere there. I couldn't find it easily. We also, if you remember earlier in Perek Yud, we mentioned that there's 7 names for that Yerushalayim stands on 7 mountains, and we said that could be that's referring to 7 different names for Yerushalayim. But I don't know if that has anything to do with what we just said, because here we're talking about Har Sinai. But there's also the Indian of 7 and a mountain. Shiva Yamim Bara Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem created 7 seas. Umikulam loivachar ela yam Kineres. And of all the 7 seas, Hashem Dafka chose the Kineres. But what are the 7 seas? So the Gra explains that the 7 seas are Yam Tiveria, which is what we're talking about, Kineres, Sdoim, which is the Yam HaMelach.
Sorry, who brings this?
One second. Chilas, Chuso, Sabchi, I don't know what those are. Aspamia, which is Spain, the Sea of Spain, I don't know what that is. V'Yam HaGadol and I guess the Mediterranean. The Sea of Spain maybe is Atlantic, and the Yam HaGadol is Mediterranean. I'm not sure exactly how to understand. Are you asking? One second.
Who said the word? The terminology?
Of which one?
Yam Tveria.
The Gra.
Okay.
He calls the Kineres Yam Tiveria.
Okay.
So it's really a Gemara. I'm going to say in a moment that it's really a Gemara. But yeah, what are you saying?
The Atlantic is the Ukinis, it's not a Yam, right? I think it's called the Ukinis. Huh?
Yeah, in other places in Chazal, the Atlantic is called Okeanos.
Interesting, it puts Tiveria as a sea. The Great Lakes are bigger than the Yam Tiveria.
It's true.
Interesting. I think it used to be bigger.
I mean, obviously there's more than 7 seas, right? There's the Caspian Sea, and the Black Sea, and the Yellow Sea, and that's the Sea of China or something, right? The Yellow Sea is called the Sea of China.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn geography?
I like geography. I think that's correct.
There's a whole bunch of seas. I don't know.
The Baltic Sea. The
Yeah.
Baltic Sea is near.
There are 5 oceans according to
The Caribbean Sea.
4 options, really come to 5.
Whatever you can see.
No, because they started counting the Indian. They count the Indian Ocean as separate from the Pacific or
Indian,
something.
the Pacific, the Atlantic,
Atlantic, Pacific, Arctic, Indian, what's the fifth?
Antarctic Ocean.
Antarctic?
On the bottom.
If you look it says Antarctic Ocean, which goes all around Antarctica. It's not including Indian Pacific, even though
Even though it meets.
and there's no, it's just
Right,
It's whatever's around Antarctica.
That's why Chazal can refer to all the oceans as Okeanos, and it's really one big ocean.
It's just one big ocean.
The names are just
Yeah.
they're subjective.
Gulf will relate to also the Mediterranean and whatever it's like joined to the oceans as the oceans it's connected. The water is connected. You can say the same thing about the Canaries.
Yeah. Well, Agav, once you're mentioning geography, I used to think that when it talks about Sheva Aratzos, it's talking about the 7 continents.
I was going to say that.
But then I decided that the 7 continents is the same thing. It's also completely subjective.
Yeah.
They decided to make up different names for different. Technically, Madagascar is supposed to be like its own continent or something, and like.
You said a good point where you can't think of 7 continents because Israel's in Asia.
Right.
So
That's.
if you're counting that, you have to
I
count
don't
entire
know.
Asia.
Israel's in Asia or Israel's in Africa.
Asia, where is Israel in Africa?
I don't know. It depends where you draw the border.
The African border is in Egypt.
The Sinai is in Africa or in Asia?
It's in Asia.
It's in Asia.
Sinai?
The Sinai
The border of Africa starts with the
with the
Nile.
Nile.
Yeah.
The Nile River is the
That's what
border.
you said?
Interesting.
So, and the Sinai Desert is on the other side of the
The
Nile.
Nile of Suez, he makes a cut.
The Suez, yeah.
Suez makes
So
a
the Suez was a man-made though. I
Okay.
think the British built it. Huh?
No, but it's all on this small part. It's also
And yet, Israel
whole
is Europe,
whole
because Africans don't
portion
want
of the ocean go
Asians don't want
to,
So it became a very European type
Cairo.
country.
Yeah. Look, they use
just join.
they use European voltage and electricity.
What was man-made?
Very European style.
Okay.
That was the Yam Suf over there?
So there's 7 seas, and of the 7 seas, Hakadosh Baruch Hu Dafka chose the Yam Kineres, v'inchila l'shevet Naphtali, and he bequeathed it to the tribe of Naphtali. Shemar, it says in the pasuk, Naphtali tzvarotzai nemoli birkas Hashem. Naphtali is full of rotzon and is filled with the bracha of Hashem. Yom v'darim Yerusha. It yarshin the sea and the darim. So what's the sea? That sea is the Yam Kineres. So what's so special about the Yam Kineres? So the Radah brings 2 explanations. One is that some sources say that the chilazon is in the Yam Kineres, and then he says, but we find that the chilazon has to do with zvulun. Actually, it could be it's technically pronounced halzon, not chilazon, but whatever. The chilazon is associated with zvulun, not with Naphtali. So where does that come from? So this is another pshat that the mile of the Kineres is that the peris genusar, which grow by Tiberia, which Gemara Brachos talks about. You know what I'm talking about. Are supposed to be very special fruits, and that comes from the sea of the Kineres.
According to something I've seen, Zulun is also on the Kineres a little bit.
Yeah. So that's what you see this long piece of the Radal over here. That's what that's one of the things he's talking about.
The over on the west too.
No, so according to the Gra,
There's like a strip,
according to the Gra, even it's a bit melachos. Really, Zulun doesn't have a chelek on the west.
Wow.
Oh,
It's a finish.
I'll show you a map. Which shows the
So
Gra.
the grass says
It's
that
not even on the west
like
map.
this.
Zulun is like this. Here's the Yam Han. Here is a small portion here, and then it comes up to the end. Not even on the Yam, which is over here.
Okay.
It's machlokes. That's
How come
what
this guy
the
is saying
Gra.
that?
Everyone else says he's on the Yam.
Shiva midbaros bara kadosh baruch Hu. Hashem created 7 deserts. What are the 7 deserts? Okay, we'll get that in a moment. Umikulam lebachar ela midbar kadosh. And from all the 7 deserts, Hashem Dafka chose midbar kadosh ve'hever bar Yisrael kashatzim in Mitzrayim. And that was the desert that he passed the Jews through when they came out of Mitzrayim. Dafka midbar kadosh. Now, what are the seven deserts? So, also quoting from the Gra elsewhere, the Gra writes the 7 deserts are Midbar Isam, Midbar Shur, Midbar Sin, Midbar Sinai, Midbar Paran, Midbar Tzin with a tzaddik, and Midbar Kdemis.
Midbar Sin with a samach and a tzaddik.
There's one with a samach, one with a tzaddik. And that, I guess the understanding is that Midbar Sinai is the same thing as Midbar Kodesh. If you look in the Chizkuni in Parshas Bereshis, so the Chizkuni is talking about by Chanoich, when Chanoich was born, and Chanoich was a special person, and Hashem took him away and turned him into a malach. So the Chizkuni says that Chanoich was a 7th generation person from Adam Rishon. You have Adam, Shes, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel, Yered, and then Chanoich. Chanoich was a 7th generation person, and he was Kadosh. So there the Chizkuni says that, so that was the first example, and from then on you find that all kinds of examples of 7 are also Kaddish. And he mentions Chanoich. He says David HaMelech was the 7th kid of Yishai, and then he says the 7 heavens, the 7 Arotzos, the 7 Midbaros. He says the 7 heavens are Arovas, the 7 of the 7 lands, Eretz Yisrael. Of the 7 Midbaros, he says Midbar Sinai. He doesn't say Midbar Kadesh. So maybe he understands it's the same idea. It's the same thing. Of the 7 Yamim, he says Yam Kineres. Chizkuni just the same. It's following mamish the same as the Pirkei Eliezer. Okay, weiter. Shiva Olamais Bara Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem created 7 worlds. Umikulam leBachar Ela Olam Shvi. And of all the 7 worlds, Hashem Dafka chose the 7th one. Shisha Lates V'Lavai. 6 to come and go. Ve'echad shekulei Shabbos Menucha l'chayei ha'olam. And the 7th one, the last one, is going to be kulei Shabbos, a complete rest and menucha for all of eternity. That's another example, or the 7th one is Kaddish. Now, what exactly is this talking about? So the Radal has sort of 2 approaches. The first one is based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Zal tell us that Shita Alfei Shnin Alma, the world will be 6,000 years. V'chad Charuv, and for 1,000 years the world will be destroyed. Right? So the world is going to be 6,000 years, and then after 6,000 years the world will be destroyed for 1,000. Let's say for 1,000 years. Pashtus, that's the way to understand the Pashtus of the Gemara. We'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, so what the Medrash is saying over here is that for 6,000 years the world is going to exist, and then in the seventh millennium the world is going to be destroyed. And we're going to get that what it means the world is going to be destroyed is that's going to get to Olam Haba. And he brings that Chazal and other places bring the pasuk that we said last week is talking about Shabbos, and then we said it's also talking about Olam Haba. What's the pasuk? Yom echad yivod al Hashem lo yom v'lo layla. There's a day that's known to Hashem that's not day, neither day nor night. That's talking about Shabbos, we said last week. And it's also talking about Olam Haba. He applies that pasuk to this idea over here. There's 6 days, the world is going to function for 6,000 years, and then the 7,000 is going to be Olam Haba. That's one pshat that the Radal says. The other pshat that the Radal says is based on the Rishonim that speak about this. The Ramban does not speak about this. The generation after the Ramban does speak about it. Like Rabbeinu Bachaya and Ibn Shua, but these Mefarshim, they do speak about this. That besides the Gemara that says that the world is going to be there for 6,000 years and then it's going to be destroyed in the 7th, they say that that's going to happen 7 times over. Hashem's going to create the world, exist for 6,000 years, then be destroyed for 1,000 years, then recreate the world for 6,000 years, destroyed for 1,000 years, etc., 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 7 times, and then when you get to 50,000 years, right, 7 times 7 is 49. When you get to the 50,000th year, that's when Hashem is going to destroy the world forever, and that's going to be mamish the end. The famous idea that the early Mukubalim speak about this. some later Mukubalim say that it's not true and when you shouldn't hold of this. I think that Rizal came out strongly against it, and the Leshem wanted to say that no, we do hold it. It's like a whole vikuach whether this idea is true or not. Whether no, it's just 6,000 years in the 7th year, or there's going to be 7 cycles of 6,007. But the Radal says that if you learn like that, this understanding, then the Medrash over here makes more sense. It's seven worlds. Each world, it says Sheva Olamas. It doesn't say Sheva. It doesn't say 7 millennia. It says 7 worlds. And Hashem, there's 7 worlds. 6 are going to go Latzes V'Lavai, and then the 7th one is Kulei Shabbos. If you learn the first understanding, it should be 7 millennia. Six of them, the world is going to be Latzes V'Lavai, and the 7th one is Shabbos. Here you're saying it's seven worlds. That sounds like the other understanding, that it's going to be, it's referring to those cycles. Six of those cycles where Hashem is going to destroy it and recreate it, and the 7th one is going to destroy it without recreating it. And then the Mukubalim talk about which cycle are we in. That's the. That's what I believe the Livnas HaSapir says, that we're in the 2nd cycle. Someone else says that we're in the 6th one or the 7th. I don't remember exactly.
What do most people take the sign of the Arizal, or how do people?
I don't know.
What's the consensus?
I'm not sure. I know that all the Rishonim go with this, and then like after the Rizal, I think it became less popular that the whole idea. What were you saying from the Ramchal?
The Ramchal holds that 7,000 from 6,000 7,000 is just from 7,000 8,000 is destruction, birth, 1,000 years, and then is Olam Haba.
Right. Where is this in Derech Hashem? That's Tfunas? Derech Hashem.
Which parak in Derech Hashem is speaking?
I just remember it, and I asked the question, how do you know that? And it could be maybe from here or not?
It could be. Sheva Shonim Bara Kadosh Baruch Hu Umikulon Lo Yborchar El Shnas Shmita. There's 7 years that Hashem created in the 7-year cycle, and of the 7 years, Hashem Tafka chose the 7th one, the Shemitah. Fine. That finishes off basically the Indian of 7. The Chizkuni speaks out a few more things about 7. He also says Shiva of the Shiva Ilamas, the Shvi is Kul Shabbos, like we said from the Birkat of Lezer. He continues to say that of the 7 Neres on the menorah, Hashem chose the Ner Maravi, which is the last one that's lit, the 7th one. Of the 7 days of the week, we have Shabbos. Of the 7 months, we have Tishri, which has 3 holidays, 3 or 4 holidays in it. Tishri or Tishrei? What do you say? I know the Pri Megadim in the beginning of Sefer Nutrikan says it's supposed to be pronounced Tishri, not Tishrei. But everyone says Tishrei. Tishrei? Yeah. It comes from Pashtus, it comes from the Babylonian calendar.
So what does it say over there?
I don't know. And then he says also the Shemitah, Yovel.
How much it says Chodesh Shvi?
Right. In I saw one of the Mefarshim on the Sefer Yitzir, I forgot which one, says that we also find that by Moshe Rabbeinu, the Moshe Rabbeinu is the 7th generation from Avram Avinu. Of Avram, it's like Yaakov, Levi, Kehos, Amram, Moshe. Moshe is the holy from the 7th generation. And I happened to have come across a piece of paper that I wrote many years ago, which is a list of different things that I wrote down. This got to be at least close to 10 years old, of different things that I found that have to do with the number 7. A lot of them we spoke about. What? I don't know. Does it say what year? No. 7 days of Bereshis, 7 days of the week, 7 days of Sukkot, 7 days of Pesach, 7 days of inaugurating the Beis HaMikdash, 7 days of Avelus, 7 days of Chassan and Kala, 7 days before Yom Kippur, they're mafresh the Kohen Gadol, 7 days between Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, 7 days of Tumah, when you Tumas Meis, Tumah of Yoledes Zohar or Zav and Zava. 7 days a kid has an orla, on the 8th day he gets his bris. 7th hour to daven Musaf, you have 7 hours. 7 months of to give birth. The Gemara says that you need at least 7 months in order to give birth. 7 weeks of Sfiras Omer, 7 years of Shemitah, 7 Shemitas of a Yovel. In the dream of Paro, we have the 7 years of famine, and the 7 years of what's it called, surplus, and the 7 cows, and the seven shibolim. The 7th month is Tishri. We said that is 7,000 years. It took them 7 years to conquer Eretz Yisrael. It took them 7 years to be Machalik Eretz Yisrael. 7 years to build the Beis Hamikdash. 7 days of Tashlumin after Shavuos to be Oila L'Regel. You have this week we're starting the 7 weeks of Haftarahs after Tisha B'Av, the Shiva de Nechemta, right? So that's also 7. Right? We have Nachmu Ami, 7 spheres, whatever. 7 Shivarkiyim, we mentioned over here in this Perikadozes. Shivarayim, it's also a concept in the Gemara. There's 7 shepherds that are that lead Klal Yisrael. 7 Ushpizin, also comes from the Zohar. There's 7 liquids that make a food susceptible to becoming tamei, right? Dvash, honey, dew, water, oil, olive oil, wine, blood, and milk. 7 mayadim, I guess the 6 that we said before, plus Yom Kippur. 7 mesachtas and seder nashim. I wonder what the significance of that is. There's 7 brachas in Shemona Esrei. When it's not Shemona Esrei, it's usually 7. Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's always 7. Musaf is always 7, except for Musaf on Rosh Hashanah. There's 7. We said there's 7 generations from Adam till Moshe and Aaron. There's 7 kailos and Mizmor David Havel Hashem b'nei Elim. So it says Kail Hashem al Mayim, Kail Hashem al Kovet. It says 7 voices, 7 things on the menorah, 7 levels of Gehenim, 7 mizbachos that Bilam built, 7 seirim, 7 goats that you bring on Yom Kippur, 7 times the Kohen Gadol sprinkles the blood 7 times on Yom Kippur. There's different things. The Rekech says that there's 7 words in the last pasuk of Birkas Kehanim, connected the 7 years that the Shvatim were born in, and the 7 years that Yaakov Avinu worked for Rachel in order to marry Rachel. And then there's 7. He says the Rekech says there's 7 mitzvahs that have to do with 7 days. So Shabbos, Nida, Shemitah, Yoled Zachar, Pesach, Sukkah, and Shabbat Brachos. We have 7 aliyahs on Shabbos, all those different things. Then you can have a whole other maracha on number 70, which the Mefarshim says 70 is a function of 7. And you have a whole bunch of different things that have the significance of 70. So,
you mentioned the 7 Canaanite nations.
7 Canaanite nations. Yeah. You have any other ones to add? Let's see if we can add more. What? 7 Canaanite nations, 7 hymns of the Yetzer Hara. Is 7, yeah?
Yeah, I think in Yisrael has 7 names.
Yisrael has 7 names.
And also,
It's a Rashi that says in all.
The beginning of Yisrael, no? Maybe, I don't remember.
Is it Mishtam Eliyahu that brings 7 names of the Yetzer Hara? I think so.
What?
Mishtam Eliyahu, right? They brings 7 names of the Yetzer Hara.
Could be.
And according to each level, according to
Shabbos Shemos Nikra Udo. Ul, yes, Yisrael, Chavar, Kimi.
Okay, probably number 7 is the.
I don't know the 2, but I don't think that it's mamash like that.
What?
The 2 measures Yom Tov, the Chodesh Hashvi.
Well, we said that. We said that the Tishrei is the 7th month.
I wasn't thinking. I gotta wake up.
And then Nisan is the 7th month from Tishrei.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you see that 7 is a significant thing.
You could probably add a whole book.
Yeah, you can probably write a whole book on Taka. Okay.
Maharal writes a lot about this concept.
Yeah, the Maharal does. The Maharal says like
sides to a square.
the Maharal has like a whole thing about like the difference between 7 and 8. That like 7 represents like the Spitz of Teva, and 8 represents the Malam in a Teva. And that's why like Hanukkah is 8 because it's the Malam in a Teva. I don't know exactly all these things, but such ideas exist.
7 plus 1 is
Okay, let's just finish off the parak. This is what we're waiting for. Anyone who's Shemer Shabbos in this world, Kadosh Baruch Hu forgives all of his averes. It says in the pasuk, Shemer Shabbos mechalaloi. He guards the Shabbos from defiling it, from desecrating it. Mechalaloi means from desecrating it. Atikre Shemer Shabbos mechalaloi, from desecrating it. Ela machuloi, rather machuloi, he is machul, he is forgiven. From here we learn that when a person keeps Shabbos, his affairs are all forgiven. The way the Bais HaGadol explains what the drasha here is, if you look in the Pesukim, whenever the Torah talks about being Mechal Shabbos, it says Mechal Leha Moisumas, let's say, right? Person who's Mechal Shabbos, Moisumas. Mechal Leha, Lashon Nekeva. A person's Mechal Shabbos, the Torah calls it Lashon Nekeva, refers to Shabbos as Lashon Nekeva. Right? And here, when it says Shemer Shabbos Mechalalai, it uses Lashon Zohar, not like the Lashon of the Torah. Shabbos goes either way, we said it before, Shabbos goes either way. So sometimes Lashon Zohar, sometimes Lashon Nekeva. But why would the Navi Yeshaya deviate from the Lashon of the Torah? From here, Chazal understood that there's a drasha that he means to say. It doesn't mean to say Mechalalai, from desecrating it, but it means Macholai. He is Mechal. That's that Inyan. The Radal has an interesting discussion. I wrote a little bit about it over here, about the beginning of that pasuk says Ashrei Enosh Yasa Zayis Uven Adam Yachazik Ba, and the Gemara in Masechah Shabbos says Ashrei Enosh Yasa Zayis, even if a person is Ovid of Avodah Zarah like Enosh, but he keeps Shabbos, Mochoi like Olav Naisav. Shemer Shabbos Mechal, he gets his gila. I don't know. Every Shabbos or Shabbos in general. Some means Shabbos in general.
I mean, when is he Mochel? After every Shabbos, or just like?
I don't know. I think a person who keeps Shabbos in general, so Hashem, sort of forgives him for more serious affairs. Because that's even Shabbos is a steer to Avodah Zarah. Because Shabbos it gives edus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and Avodah Zarah is denying HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why a person is, we pass in that a person who's mumer the Shabbos, he doesn't keep Shabbos, so he's called a mumer l'kol Torah kula. That's like my father is like sort of involved in like kashrus and stuff. So like when they try to hire mashkichim, there's one thing that they want to find out about a mashkiach: are you shomer Shabbos or you're not shomer Shabbos? Right? Because if you're shomer Shabbos, that means you're a trustworthy Jew and we can rely on you. He doesn't wear tefillin every day. Okay, but he's shomer Shabbos. If you're not shomer Shabbos, then you have the halachic status of a mummer. Then we can't necessarily rely on you. That's the one gather that they want to know. Shomer Shabbos or not shomer Shabbos. But it's interesting, the Radal has a discussion. He says that our Medrash didn't bring that first part of the pasuk of Ashrei Enosh Yasa Zayis, because that even if you're like Enosh who's Ovid of Avodah Zarah, because it could be that our Medrash understood that Enosh himself was not Ovid of Avodah Zarah. The Rambam in the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah says that Enosh himself was from the people that were Ovid of Avodah Zarah. Other Mefarshim seem to say that in the generation of Enosh is when Avodah Zarah started, but he himself wasn't. Yeah, but he himself not. That's a
he brought it.
Right.
So that's just the generation.
Right. It was the him or the generation. That's an interesting discussion.
He brought like that their kids start to do it.
I think
he brought it like one of the bring kids to the world. That's the generation.
Maybe it didn't say that. It was
brought.
Yeah.
Did it?
But the point is that there's a drush over here that we're saying Kol Shomer Shabbos Mechaloi, that a person is Mochel, and we're dashing it from the fact that it says Mechalaloi Lashon Zohar instead of Mechalaleha, and that's where we see it from. We said that Shabbos is Lashon Zohar, Shabbos is Lashon Nekeva. We say in davening on Shabbos, on Leil Shabbos, Friday night, we say in Shemana say V'yanuchu Vach Yisrael Mekadshe Shemecha, or V'yanuchu Kol Yisrael Mekadshe Shemecha, whatever. V'yanuchu Vach. People rest on her. On Shabbos is referred to her. On Shabbos day, both by Shachas and by Musaf, we refer to Shabbos as V'yanuchu Vai. On him. On Shabbos as Lashon Zohar. Shabbos by Mincha, it's both. Shabbos V'yanuchu Vam. On them. Some Girsas actually say Shabbos, but Parsha says V'yanuchu Vam. It says on them, on multiple, as if there's multiple aspects of Shabbos, which goes back to what we were saying earlier, that there's a double aspect of Shabbos. So there's Zohar and Nekeva, and the Shabbos is both of them. But the Mukubalim say that there's a certain aspect of Shabbos night and there's a certain aspect of Shabbos day, and Shabbos afternoon, mincha time is all of them together. It's plural. It's both boy and ba. That's why it's bam, plural, as if it's multiple Shabboses. The Rabbeinu Bechai talks about this. The Ramami Pana speak about how Shabbos. Some people think that the way Shabbos works is that you start from L'cha Daidi and it goes up and up and up and up, and then you're eating your cholent. That's like the apex of Shabbos, like that's a spitz, and then from there it goes downhill, and then by the time Shabbos is over, there's already nothing doing over there. That's how some people look at it. But the way the Mukabalim say it, it's the exact opposite. It starts with L'cha Daidi, you're Makabal Shabbos, the beginning, and it goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and you're eating your cholent, and it goes up and up and up and up and up and up, and it's Shabbos afternoon, it's up and up and up and up and up and up, and then when you're in shul, let's say by Ma'ariv Mitzvah Shabbos, and there's like an immediate drop right there.
Like
It doesn't. Like a roller. Mamish goes like a free fall. It doesn't. It's not a gradual. It's not a gradual end to Shabbos.
I agree with that 100%. That's why in halacha you should say it calmly. It's just like a verb.
Yeah.
And the whole end of Shabbos and the tefillah, I should say like.
And I think that's the pshat. There's a thesis in Pesachim that says that the reason why we have besamim on Leil Shabbos by Havdalah is to console you because you lost your neshama yisera. So some people think that you gradually lose your neshama yisera as Shabbos afternoon is going along, right? And then all of a sudden, Mitzvah Shabbos, it's gone, so you make Havdalah. So what do you need to console for? You feel it, you're losing it. But I think it makes more sense if you lose it suddenly, right when Shabbos is over, it's gone. So then you need more of a consolation.
Why is that to the children?
But no, I'm just throwing that in because some people look at that. That's like the spitz.
What they're waiting for.
But one nafkamin of this that I see that a lot of people, my rebbeim have come out against it, and with this idea we'll stop, is that some people they wear special clothing on Shabbos, covered, for davening on Shabbos they wear a tie. That's it. That's not negated to you. But some people wear a tie on Shabbos. Yeah. If you wear a tie or you don't wear a tie, it's good. It's all good. Whatever your minig is, you wear a tie, you don't wear a tie. But the point is like this: some people they wear a tie Shabbos Friday night, you wear a tie. Shabbos morning, you wear a tie. You come to shul Shabbos afternoon, you wear a tie. It's not really Shabbos anymore. It's like if you're doing a covered Shabbos, Shabbos afternoon is the holiest part of Shabbos. And Farshim said that's why the Shabbos by Shalosh Shudas also it's Panim Chadashos. Each meal of Shabbos, you don't by Shabbat brachos you don't need new people. So, because I don't want to get exactly into that, but the Mukabalim say that Shalosh Shudas is also Panim Chadashos because the Shalosh Shudas is like the holiest part of Shabbos. And then you have the people that come to shul, they don't wear a tie Shabbos afternoon. So what? Shabbos afternoon is not Shabbos?
Or strammel.
Huh?
Or strammel.
Or strammel or whatever. There's the guys that wear the strammel on the hand. But Metz Hashem, we should be zeichet to be Mikabel Shabbos miteich Reiv Simcha, miteich Ava, and probably be Shabbos.